Hello, friends, and welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey. Let's talk rumors, and we begin with Chris Harris as a member of the Dallas Cowboys. I will give this 2 stars. And before we dive too far in, I'll make something very clear. NFL agents are smart. When they leak information, they're going to mention teams like the Dallas Cowboys, but there are reports out there, including some from Denver and from Dallas, that the Cowboys are among the teams interested in adding Chris Harris, and Harris is a Cowboys fan in the past before he, of course, moved to the Broncos. So, it makes some sense. And the Cowboys have a big-time need at the cornerback spot. Now, Harris, he is going to turn 31, but he's also been a bona fide number 1 cornerback for years in Denver, sometimes in the slot, sometimes out wide. The production's been really great. The turnovers have been far more consistent than anyone on the current Cowboys roster. The issue becomes, first off, what's the cost going to be for Chris Harris? I don't think he's going to command as much money for Byron Jones for a couple reasons. Number one, Byron Jones is still ascending. His contract will consist of his prime. Chris Harris, you might get a couple years of the prime, but by the end of the deal, he's probably not going to be in it any longer unless, he's one of the crazy freak athletes, which I love Chris Harris, but that's not the way you're going to bet. So Byron will probably cost more, and quite frankly, look, Byron Jones was better than Chris Harris last year. These coverage stats per Pro Football Focus, better completion percentage allowed for Byron, fewer yards per snap, same touchdowns, yes, 1 less interception, but how many yards is 1 interception worth? Is it double the yards that Byron Jones gave up? I don't believe that it is. Now, I like Chris Harris. When we went through our Byron Jones replacements for free agency, Chris Harris was number 1. He is one of the better options out there. And you'll probably save money, but you're going to end up getting a little bit worse. So pick a cornerback. Type H for Harris, J for Byron Jones. Which one would you rather have? And if you're watching on YouTube, you might get with an ad break here. If you do, I've made this question the pinned comment. You can scroll on down and cast your votes right there. Next up, a Dak Prescott franchise tag. We've kind of gone around and around in circles on this one. Still going to give it the 3 stars. I do think that is the likely fallback option. But even if there is a franchise tag, that does not mean he's going to play on the tag. Let me make that super clear for everybody watching. Because the Cowboys, they cannot let Dak Prescott hit the open market. They simply cannot do that. There are other teams out there with money to spend, a giant need at the quarterback spot, that would throw money at Dak Prescott. So then it becomes, okay, well, which franchise tag do they use? There's the exclusive tag, which means no teams could sign him, for $33 million, or the non-exclusive tag for $27 million, which could be either A, 2 first-round picks, or they could work out a different deal, kind of like how Jarvis Landry and the Browns and Dolphins did a couple of years ago. The Cowboys are not going to let him hit free agency. And if they hit him with the exclusive tag, that indicates to me they are a little bit closer to getting a deal done, and it's just a placeholder so that their number 1 guy does not hit the open market. Now, the franchise tag timeline did change this year. They bumped it back 2 days, February and March, because of the CBA uncertainty. If we get to the start of free agency, if we get to March 12th, and there is no deal done for Dak Prescott, they're going to tag him. They don't really have any other options because you will lose him in free agency, or you at least run a very high risk of losing him in free agency, and now you're way worse at the most important position. The big question, though, is why isn't there a Dak deal? Now, as many of you guys know, I was down in Indianapolis, or I should say up in Indianapolis, for the NFL Combine. The why isn't there a Dak deal was a question I asked many of times. And depending on who you talk to, those first 3 answers, they ebbed and flowed as to which one was more valuable. CBA uncertainty, I think that's a huge factor here. Both sides want to know what the true market will look like. Others think it's because Todd France, Dak's agent, is not backing down, and that's certainly true. Others think it's because the Cowboys want value, and they're trying to get that cheap deal, and they're going to wait to the last minute, just like they did with DeMarcus Lawrence and Zeke Elliott, and on and on and on, unless other players like Jalen Smith and La'el Collins take distinctly team-friendly deals. All 3 of those things are true as to what they're disagreeing on. Length of the deal is a factor. The guaranteed money is a factor. It's less of the per year. The Cowboys and Dak have a good feel for that. It's figuring out some of the other details there. I think it's done. I just don't know when it's going to get done. But Cowboys, clock's ticking right now. I have a deal for you guys from our friends over at Fanatics. Head over to chatsports.com/Cowboys hoodie. That is chatsports.com/Cowboys hoodie. All types of styles and colors. Heck, they even got a custom hoodie with your name on the back and jersey number. Yeah, kind of crazy, right? It's chatsports.com/Cowboys hoodie. Those are up to 30% off. The supplies are getting a little bit low, so I get in on that right now while you still can. All right, this next rumor is an interesting one. Amari Cooper to the Eagles. I'm going to give it 1 star before we all freak out. Jane Slater was on Good Morning Football and was talking about, hey, well, what about Amari and the Philadelphia Eagles? Now, she later was like, no, it was just a potential why not scenario, not being like that the Cooper's going to leave. And again, I don't think that Cooper leaves. I also thought by now one of the Cooper-Dak Prescott duo would have signed a long-term deal. The Cowboys are working on an extension for Amari Cooper, and because we are almost up against the opening of free agency, what I think you'll see happen is one of Amari Cooper or Dak Prescott will get a long-term deal done before free agency starts. The other will be tagged, which makes sense, right? If you let Amari or Dak at the open market, man, you might lose those guys. Now, you're going to lose Byron Jones, which is why I am still frustrated by Stephen Jones' consistent, attitude, desire, process is what I'm looking for. This consistent process to wait until the 11th hour to get a deal done. It's going to cost them either one of Amari or Byron Jones, and all likely it'll probably end up costing them Byron Jones. As for Amari, he says he wants to be here. The Cowboys say they want him here. I've got no reason to not believe them. It's just the Cowboys operate, I'd say weirdly, which is a nice way of putting it, when it comes to extensions and contracts. The price tag will be interesting. I would not be surprised, and this is kind of the buzz I got coming out of Indy, that the salary cap, once the CBA is agreed to, once the TV deals are agreed to, the salary cap could skyrocket within 5, 6, 7 years from where we are now to where it could be. So you might see some inflated deals if that is actually how things are going to go. If you can get Amari for $18 million, I think you got to feel okay about that if you're the Dallas Cowboys. So will they lose Amari Cooper? Type Y for yes, type N for no. You are running the risk right now because as we currently sit, you might only have one tag available. If that's the case and you have to use it on Dak Prescott, do you want Amari on the open market? What's to stop a team with a giant need a receiver and plenty of money to spend, like the Buffalo Bills, from coming in and just throwing $21 million at Amari Cooper? That is a risk the Cowboys are dangerously close to taking. I don't like it. But in the end, I'm still typing in my no. I think Cooper and Dak are back with the Cowboys. They'll try with Robert Quinn as well. Byron Jones, meanwhile, he ain't going to come back. Sorry, guys. Let's talk about Dez, speaking of coming back. A return to the Cowboys. Let's bump this up to 2. Again, I still want to just not get everyone overhyped and excited because I know how so many of you feel about Dez Bryant. It's also, by the way, how Jerry Jones feels because he said he would not dismiss a Dez Bryant return. And I want to get to the quote because there's 2 things. First off, the quote is hilarious. This is peak Jerry Jones saying he's thinking about Dez in the shower. A side note on that, don't we all think about the Cowboys in the shower? I do. Dylan, do you? Dylan says he does too. It's just what we do. It sounds weird, but it's accurate. But the key part of this is that Jerry says he has not talked to Dez directly. That is not an accident, guys. There is a reason that Dez Bryant didn't text Jerry Jones, that Dez Bryant texted Stephen Jones. Remember who's got a little bit more of the influence these days around the Dallas Cowboys. Figuring out the exact role, it's still tricky. So I don't want everyone to get their hopes up yet because I don't want you guys to be disappointed and be like, Tom, you told us it could happen. Could, but we don't know where it's at yet. Come back after free agency. As I've said before, I've got no issues bringing Dez Bryant in on a 1-year deal with no guaranteed money and letting him compete for a role. Now, I think the Saints, frankly, the Chiefs might actually be a better fit for Dez, but we know how Dez feels about Dallas. He loves it. He loves the fans. I mean, just check his Instagram story. It's very obvious how he feels. So you can type your X for yes or P for pass. Regardless of what we type in, we have to remember, though, we're not getting prime Dez Bryant. 2014, 2013, 2015 Dez Bryant, that guy's probably not going to walk by the door. And if that's your expectation, you're going to be disappointed. It's all about figuring out what the role could be for Dez. And I know we're like, just put him in the red zone role. We tried that. 2017. Didn't work. For whatever reason, Dez and Dak have not had the chemistry that Romo and Dez had. Or even better, that Dak and Gallup and Dak and Cobb and Dak and Cooper have. If you bring back those top three guys, it gets a little bit dicey, especially in light of Mike McCarthy's comment saying special teams are going to matter. The Cowboys last year rostered Devin Smith for the entire season, and he offered very little on special teams. Dez could easily take the Devin Smith role, but I'm not sure that role is going to be available if the Cowboys, at long last, truly value special teams the way that, say, the Patriots do, who have rostered Matthew Slater, who's not an offensive guy, but is a receiver who plays special teams for years. Now, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Cowboys120. That promo code, it gets you a 120% deposit bonus. So if you're feeling aggressive, you can throw someone down who's going to win the XFL this year. If you bet on the Dallas Renegades, things have not gone according to plan so far for Bob Stoops' team. Leonard Jones banged up again. Houston's playing great, though. The DC Defenders are playing great. Those are the updated XFL odds. You can bet on those, and, of course, the games for the XFL. And heck, it's now March Madness, too. Crazy how the year's flown by. You can do it all on BetDSI, chatsports.com/bet. That promo code is Cowboys120. Let's talk draft now. C.J. Henderson, is he a round one option? I'm going to give this one 2 stars, mocked to the Cowboys by Matt Miller, and maybe you'll see a Cowboys mock draft coming up that features C.J. Henderson. From me, who knows? You'll find out. I like Henderson. I have some concerns, but in reality, you're not going to find a flawless prospect at number 17 overall. That's just not how it works. You might get lucky. You might get a good player. You probably will get a good player, but there's a reason that they often are on the board. Now, Henderson, it's the tackling. He is a bad tackler. You can watch some of his early season reps, and it's gross. It was bad. He didn't look interested, wasn't really all that into it. It was bad overall. But coverage-wise, he's good. And frankly, 2018 was even better than his 2019 production. Henderson, I think he, Okudah, and maybe Jeff Gladney and Christian Fulton as well, those are the guys who I believe can play man-to-man coverage. And if you can play man-to-man, you can play any scheme. And it is tough to find man-to-man guys. And if it comes down to it, at corner, I'm going to take the guy who prevents passes than the guy who's great after the catch with tackles. That's just not valuable to me. Now, Henderson's ball skills were better early on, a little bit less this past year. They've dipped, but part of that is just the number of targets he's faced. If you lose Byron Jones, corner is going to be at the top of your list. Now, maybe you go the route you did back in the Taco Charlton Awuzie Lewis draft. You take a safety or defensive tackle or something, and then you double dip on day 2 at corner. That could be an option. But Henderson, without a doubt, is one of the better options for the first round for the Dallas Cowboys. Henderson, though, is only one of those guys. So if you want an updated list of potential round 1 NFL draft targets, I want you guys to type me in the comments section. If you get enough of the me's, I know we're far along in the video, but if you get enough of them, we'll let the bosses know that's what you guys want, and we'll do an updated round 1 target video. So type me right now in the comments. Let the bosses know it's what you guys want. Last note here is on Blake Jarwin getting the round 2 tender. If you've watched the show, you know this is no surprise. It's 4 stars. It just makes sense. This is the route the Cowboys are going to take unless they work out a long-term deal. But it makes sense for the Cowboys and for Blake Jarwin, frankly. He's a restricted free agent, which means you have either the first-round tender, the second-round tender, or the original round tender. The second-round tender will cost about $3.3 million. No surprise. Cost-wise, it's in between the first and the original round. But you kind of couldn't give the original round tender to Blake Jarwin because his original round doesn't exist. He was an undrafted free agent. So if you gave him that tender, you'd save less than probably about $1 million. But if a team offered him an offer sheet and he signed it and left, you got nothing back in exchange. So second round tender, this is the correct path for the Cowboys to take. He can either stay on his deal, get a long-term deal the Cowboys can match, or get a second round pick back. In all likelihood, I think Blake Jarwin plays on that $3.3 million tender for this season simply because he wants to prove himself on a tight end roster that probably won't have Jason Witten on the team in 2020, leaving Blake Jarwin as the number one guy because it's not really Dalton Schultz. So unless he wants to take a team-friendly deal, both sides will be like, yeah, play out the year. And if Blake balls out, okay, great, we'll re-sign him. If he's fine, try and bring him back. If he's horrible, they can move on. But that second-round tender is exactly the correct move for the Dallas Cowboys. One other note here, Cooper Rush will be tendered at the original round tender, so about $2.1 million. Daniel Ross, the defensive tackle, he is not going to be tendered by the Cowboys. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.